Hi, my name is Casey, and today I'm doing a tutorial on making a digital badge in Adobe Illustrator. What we're going to learn in this one is using the Pathfinder tool and how to cut shapes out, and how to use the basic 3D functions of Illustrator. A lot of people don't know it actually has some basic 3D capability beyond just the 3D perspective tool. So we're going to go into that just a little bit to add a little bit of flair to our basic shapes. So this is what we're making right here. It has a see-through, kind of a transparent shadow in the background, and a hole through the middle. So if you put this badge on something, depending on how big or small you make it, it will kind of show through and give it a little bit of dynamic look to it. All right. Okay, so first we're just going to start by making a star shape. So just click once with the right, or left, excuse me. And so I'm going to choose 12 points. You can do more or less points if you want. Radius 4 and radius 2 is 3. So radius 1 is how big the outside points are, and radius 2 is how big the inside points are. I'll just click OK. All right, so that makes a star with 12 points. So we're going to center this to our artboard by using the Align tool, which is here. But if you can't find it, just go up to Window, Align, and there it is. I'm going to click that and that to align it to my artboard. Make sure you have Align to Artboard down here selected, okay? Because that comes in very handy when you're overlapping things. Now we're going to make a circle. So I'm going to go back to my shape options here and select Ellipse tool. I'm going to click in the middle. Doesn't matter if you're precise because we're going to align it later. Click and drag. Now to make it a perfect circle, hold Shift. And to make it grow from the center out, hold Alt. So Shift Alt and click and drag. I'm going to make it, I don't know, that big looks good. Then I'm going to align it to the center of my artboard, and this should be right on top of my star shapes. Okay, good. So now we have two shapes here. We got the star shape and the circle shape. Now I'm going to select them both by drawing a square around it, or you can click one and hold Shift and click the other. Now we're going to go up to the Pathfinder tool. Pathfinder is very, very handy in lots of situations. Depending on what mode you choose, it will do different things. So we want to do Unite, which will make everything into one shape. But like there's different options. You can do like minus front, which would just keep the points, or that, which would get rid of the points, or yeah, you can play around with those and make different shapes. But for this one, we're just going to unite it, okay, to make that outside shape for that. Now I want to cut a hole in the middle. So I'm going to go make another shape, another ellipse, click and drag, hold Shift to make it perfectly circular, and Alt to go from the center out. And I'm just going to make it that size looks fine for now. Go back to our alignment, align to center, align to center. It's a little bit too big for me. I want a little bit more size on that. So I'm going to grab my selection tool, grab the corner, hold Shift and Alt. So now we have two separate shapes here. I want to use the Pathfinder tool again, but instead of uniting, this time I'm going to do this one, the exclude. So I'm going to grab both of them and click exclude. Now what that does is it used the center to cut a hole in the entire shape. All right. So now we kind of have this outside ring shape. So that's done for now. So I'm going to go into my layers and lock that just for the time being. So now what I'm going to do is just go into my type tool and make some text. I can find it there, text tool. Click, and I type the word basic multimedia, highlight everything, go to your character panel, which is down here. And again, if you can't find it over there, you can always go up to your window and go through here to find your type character. For this one, yeah, you can go online and find all kinds of fonts. There's tons of websites. There you go, SF Sports Night NS. There it is. That's a little bit small. Also, I'm going to go to my paragraph and center it. Okay, go back to my character and make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to highlight everything, go over to my character panel. There's a little bit too much space in between them, so I'm going to take the spacing and just move it down a bit. So we kind of have the basic layout of everything. So if you notice, I got this drop shadow behind it as well, so I'm going to duplicate this layer. Control C to copy, Control Shift V to paste in place. So now I have two of them. I'm going to put one behind the main shape. If you see it there, it's behind the main shape. Let's choose our colors. So I'm going to unlock this, the outer ring shape, select it, and I made it a yellow with blue outline. So we're going to go down to our colors here, double click our fill color, and make it just a blue. You can always go into your swatches also and just choose a blue color. Actually, the lines are supposed to be blue, so I'm going to flip those, and then I'm going to make the fill color yellow. So I'm going to go down yellow, make it yellow. Let's see, the text, I made a purple color. I'm just going to choose a lighter purple there. And for the background text, I'm just going to leave that black. Okay, so let's start putting some 3D onto our outer ring here. All right, so I'm going to go up to Effect, 3D, Extrude, and Bevel. Now this, make sure you turn Preview on, okay? Because if you don't have Preview on, it's not going to look like anything's happening. So turn your Preview on, and you can grab a little cube and rotate it. If you're familiar with 3D programs like 3D Studio Max, Element, anything like that, this will be pretty easy for you. But if you're not used to using 3D programs, this can be a little confusing because as you rotate it, it'll get more and more off axis, and then it'll completely screw everything up. If that happens, just zero out your X, Y, and Z axis, and then you can rotate it from there. So I'm just going to go a little bit this way, a little bit rotate it up, and then I'm going to even this out by putting it back to 0. And I'm going to turn the perspective on. I forced the perspective to give a little bit more view of the inside ring. So I'm going to take that perspective and crank it up. And if you notice, it changes the look of the ring. Not too much. And then I'm going to change the extrusion depth to give it a little bit, whoa, not that much. A little bit more depth like that. And you can play with these as much as you want. Okay, so now let's mess with the lighting here. So you have a little ball that kind of shows where the lighting goes. I have the shading color is black, which will put the shading on the inside of the ring and on the outside of the edges over here. Now I'm going to give this a little bit more angle so we can see these edges. There we go. It's starting to look a little bit more dynamic. Okay, so let's move the shading over here, and let's turn the ambient light down just a little bit. Light intensity at 100, highlight intensity, let's crank that up so it gets really bright in there. Highlight size, and you can mess with these until you like how it looks. And blend steps, you see this banding in there, change your blend steps to make it smoother on the inside. There we go. So mess with that to your heart's content, and once you get that done, you can go okay. I'm going to make the stroke a little bit bigger on this one. Take that and then open up my stroke panel and raise it up just a bit, just to kind of give it a little bit more of that blue outline. Okay, so that's starting to look pretty cool. And now I'm going to turn back my lettering back on. And the great thing I like about Illustrator is that it saves your last effect right here at the top. So I'm going to select, make sure your text is selected, and I'm going to go Effect, Apply, Extrude, and Bevel, and it'll do the same effect that you just had in there. So it looks a little bit different, and then I noticed it has these little white lines around the edge. When you export it as a PNG, those disappear, so I'm not too worried about them right now. But I'm going to make sure my text is highlighted, go into Appearance, and you can double-click your last effect, and then that means you can edit it instead of adding a new one. So I'm going to turn Preview back on. I'm going to put a bevel on here. Let's see, Classic, go with Complex 1. Alright, so now the lighting's a little bit different on this one. So I'm going to try and mess with the lighting a little bit here. Turn down the ambient light. I'm going to get rid of this backlight. There we go. So that's starting to bring out some of that text a little bit more. So there's that. Hit OK. So for our drop shadow, I'm actually just going to apply the same bevel and extrude effect. Apply bevel and extrude. Now I don't want all the beveling and stuff in there, so I'm going to make sure that's highlighted. Go back to my appearance, double click 3D and extrude bevel, and I'm going to take out the extrusion. Take it all the way down so it just becomes flat. Hit OK. But that's going to leave all the perspective stuff in there. I can't really see it, so go back to layers. When you get it where you want, there it is. And now I want to make this shadow see-through, so I'm going to go to my transparency tab. And again, if you can't find it, always go to your window, down here to your transparency. Turn my transparency down to about there. Okay, so in this one, we went through and used the Pathfinder tool to combine shapes and cut out a hole in our shape. We also used the 3D effect to give some dynamic quality and some perspective to our shapes. And after that, we're going to turn off what we don't want to export, and then we're going to go File, Export, Export As, make sure it's PNG, Export, make sure our background color is transparent, because if it's not transparent, it'll save all of that white information back there, so just make sure it's transparent. Hit OK. So export it, and then go down and check out your work. There it is.